let's talk about appraisals. Appraisals, most people know what those are. It's a third party that the bank hires, and you pay for it, the buyer, to come and assess a property and tell you what they think it's worth. And according to that dollar amount, the bank will only give you that much money to purchase it. So if you have a contract for $200,000 for a house, the bank comes in, says it's worth $200,000, no problem, you go to closing, all good. If the bank comes in and says it's worth 190, the bank will only, if the appraiser comes in and says it's worth 190, the bank will only give you 190 total, even with your down payment. So you would have to make up the difference in cash if you wanted to still pay 200 for it, or you would have to renegotiate with the seller. So why is this important right now? I'm not an appraiser. I'm also not an attorney. So this is just based on information that I have been taught, but appraisal processes are changing. November, they are going to be changed for good. Right now, we're seeing a lot of appraisers using the new process. Some of them are still using the old process. And why does this matter for you? You're probably like, I don't care about appraisals, Maggie. It has nothing to do with me. Well, when you buy a house or you sell a house, you may care. So I'm going to tell you now, and then you'll know. So the process is changing. So I don't exactly know what it looks like because I don't do appraisals, but like how their system works. But what it basically, it's a lot more specific, and they're having to classify condition more thoroughly. So the appraisal values are going to come in differently than they used to. So it was very broad before, they just said this was a certain class of improvement, blah, 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 blah. Well, this new system that they're using is having them basically classify everything, including like kitchen cabinets and updates and that kind of thing. It's also having them like send pictures of roofs and be really thorough, and they have to put pictures in each of these different boxes on this form that they have to fill out. And so why does this matter? Okay, first of all, if you pay too much for a property, if you get in multiple offer situations and you pay too much, or over list price exponentially, that appraisal may not come back at that price that you're purchasing. So what happens? You either have to renegotiate, come up with the cash to make up the difference, or you have to terminate the contract because it didn't appraise. So that's super important as we get into next year's spring market, because this will be in full force. So know that if you're offering more than list price exponentially, it's probably going to impact your appraisal. And if you don't have the cash to make it up, you may not be able to get the house if the sellers won't renegotiate. So the other thing that this is important to note is, due to this new appraisal process, we are seeing more conditions on appraisals. What do conditions mean? Conditions mean that there is a defect that the appraiser says needs to be fixed before they will sign off on the appraisal and say that this property is insurable for this amount or whatever. You can get a loan for this amount. Again, not an attorney, not a mortgage lender, not an appraiser. My words may not be perfect, but this is what I know. So, for example, I just had a property that was a conventional loan, which is usually a pretty easy appraisal process. It was an old house built in the 1800s, and it had a stone foundation. We had some water seepage in the stone foundation because stone foundations were made to seep some water so that they naturally relieve the pressure. However, the appraiser did not like that there was moisture in the basement, so he said that we had to have a waterproofing company come out, assess the property, remedy it, make it dry, and then once we presented him with that paid for receipt, he would sign off on the appraisal. So guess what we had to do? We had to go back to the seller. This was a buyer that I was representing. We had to go back to the seller and say, hey, listen, I know we're already through the inspection period, and like we all understand that this is an 1800s something house and it's probably going to have some moisture in the basement, but the appraiser doesn't. And if we don't do this, we can't get the loan and we can't buy the house. So you can either do this or not and not sell it. So thankfully, after some hard-headed negotiation from me, we were able to get the seller to pay for that repair, and then we closed on the property after we had the paid invoice and sent it to the appraiser. I know this is long-winded. You don't have to listen to it all. I apologize. But real estate agents, you probably want to. So just know that we're going to be seeing changes in the appraisal process, and it's going to change how we do business and the things that we need to consider when we're putting in offers. And a lot of agents don't know about this. I've taken a few classes on it personally, so I kind of had the inside scoop early. But even the agents that I've been in these situations with, with that condition that I just spoke about. She was like, why is this happening? This is a conventional loan. I'm like, girl, stuff is changing. Here's what's going on. So I told her about it too. So just consider that, you know, there's so many contingencies in a contract, and an appraisal is a big one. And we just need to be aware of what could come up, so that as a buyer or a seller, you're not, you know, completely caught off guard if something like this comes up. So there's my pep talk for today on appraisals. Talk to you soon.